tonight on Focal Point.
May Day is about celebrating International Workers' Day and everything that the labour movement has achieved. So it's about reflecting on all the things that we've achieved, for society, not just workers, but our struggle for a decent society. And it's also about reflecting on what we'll have up ahead and future struggles as well.
You have to be savvy nowadays, don't you? If not, you have to think you're from another planet, actually.
Two age groups, they understand each other. And plus also to just realise that not everybody who's hanging about the corner is going to do them harm.
Whenever we designed that in 1995, the ground floor had to be designed to 3 metres above datum, above river level. The older buildings are actually much more energy efficient than people let on to be.
One of the main barriers to achieving inclusive arts accessibility is attitudinal barriers and a view of accessibility as a supplementary provision, something that is an afterthought rather than as integral to the production and design of an arts product.
Well, today is the annual May Day parade of workers right throughout Belfast. Probably one of the biggest May Days in the British Isles and indeed even on the island of Ireland. And it gives us an occasion to celebrate workers, trade unions and what we have done for workers. And obviously it also gives us an opportunity to interact with each other, and it's a great day for celebration for workers who then appreciate the trade union movement and commit themselves again for another hard year of work on behalf of working people right across Northern Ireland.
May Day is about celebrating International Workers' Day and everything that the labour movement has achieved. So it's about reflecting on all the things that we've achieved, for society, not just workers, but our struggle for a decent society, over the last decade. And it's also about reflecting on what we'll have up ahead and future struggles as well. So I'm here to celebrate all of that as a female trade unionist.
The working class, the proletariat, the 99%, however you choose to describe us, we need now more than ever to be united. Yeah! The recent Sunday Times Rich List has yet again affirmed that austerity is an ideology benefiting the rich at the expense of ordinary people. This ideological attack is now right at our doorstep, and it will continue no matter who's elected on the 7th of May. With upward of 20,000 redundancies in line for the public sector, with the knock-on losses to the private sector. The arts sector, the community and voluntary sector are being decimated. Crucial community services for the most vulnerable are being closed. Women are the worst affected by cuts, and many women's organisations have been locked out of funding. There are many women's groups here today that have never been on May Day before, and you're most welcome, because it's not just our day, it's your day too.
Well, we represent something in the region of over 220,000 workers, from bank clerks to managers, to bus and rail workers, to health and social care workers, education workers, both teachers and ancillary grades, and really the vast ambit of people who work right across Northern Ireland. We represent them all, private and public sector. I think the main challenges in the private sector are really the 0 hours contracts and low pay. In the public sector, it's very similar, probably low pay and the threat of redundancies. And so those are the big threats to us. It's to convince and try and attempt to leverage our own politicians to recognise that austerity has not worked, it has not solved the problem, that you need to spend your way out of recessions.
It's been called very much the age of austerity that we're living in, but certainly I think austerity itself is a deceitful narrative. We have, we've been told that we have amassed this massive debt that is an invisible debt and that we can't see, and that we have to pay down the debt. And that is driving a narrative of austerity, and it's driving cuts in the public sector. It's driving cuts to the health sector, cuts to education, cuts to many public services, when in fact what we're seeing is a transfer of wealth from the poorest people in our society to the richest people in our society. I mean, in the past number of years, the most wealthy have become much more wealthy. So it's not a case that there isn't no money. It's a case, you know, we have to ask ourselves, where is the money? And the money is with the top 1%. So in terms of public sector cuts, you know, when people say there isn't enough money to fund education, there isn't enough money to fund health, it's not true. The money's there. It's just a question of asking where it is and having that money distributed for decent public services for all.
Well, I think it's still needed because workers are still put upon by those in control of society. I mean, it's not an accident that the richest people in the world are getting richer and the poorest people are getting poorer. Ordinary workers are suffering, and you see it both in the south, where the top 250 people are now richer than they were this time last year, and in Britain they're now more billionaires than they ever had before. So there's something fundamentally wrong with society and how it's structured, and what we're arguing for and have been arguing for the last 100 years and more is a redistribution of that wealth right across all workers who contribute to society.
Trade unions have done many things. Trade unions, of course, have advanced workers' rights massively, and we no longer have child labour. We have equality rights, we have maternity rights, we have paternity rights. We fought for decent pay for people, we fought for pensions for people, and we've also fought for a decent society as well. So trade unions have done many things for workers, but they've lifted the tide, and they've lifted everybody up with that tide.
Well, I think we're standing here on a weekend. We're off on Monday for a bank holiday. We've got people who are working less hours than they worked before. We've got overtime payments, we've got maternity leave, we've got sick leave. All of those things were brought by ordinary workers fighting. It wasn't brought by the capitalist class or employers saying, do you know what, we have a nice idea, we're going to give you something. We had to grasp that, we had to drag it from them, kicking and screaming, and we continue to do so. And we might win every victory, but the more people are standing here, the more they're up to fight, then the better chance we have of actually securing a better deal for ordinary people.
I'm going to finish on a quote on the miners' strike, and it said this. It said 30 years ago, we did what was right for ourselves. We did what was right for our families. We did what was right for our communities. We did what was right for our union, and we did what was right for our class. Today, the trade union movement must step forward to defend the whole community, and we must, with confidence and energy, put forward our vision for a better future. And we must do what is right for ourselves. We must do what is right for our families. We must do what is right for our communities, and we must do what is right for our movement. We must do what is right for our class. Comrades, if we make solidarity our clarion call, we cannot lose, we can only win a better world. No pass around.
We have sourced some funding from Lincoln Generation to celebrate European Day.
Throughout this community of ours, there will be over 40 people over these next few days just celebrating this day to bring generations together and to learn together and to develop relationships between young and old.
Today we're trying to bring together our community as a group.
Find out what we know about Europe, what countries are in Europe, and how they impact on our lives. We're going to be doing some media, some looking up computer work to try and see where assess where we could go on holiday, or even see with some younger people how we can book a holiday and book it on the internet, and maybe plan a trip that way and find out a wee bit more about some of the main capital cities.
Just basic knowledge I would have on computers and stuff, but anything else around like going on the internet I wouldn't be very comfortable with, and neither would our pensioners. I think it's the age gap nowadays, but we are hoping to introduce more courses for the pensioners around ICT.
No, I have a little, I call it an iPad at home, but my granddaughter's 16, so she sort of guides me through it, like, you know, with enough to do. There's nothing that when I was growing up, you know, there wasn't even television when I was growing up. So it is, you have to be savvy nowadays, don't you? If not, I think you're from another planet, actually, so you do.
Older people, it's good that they feel that they're encouraged to do it. And I think it's important for them to do it, even if they have a basic knowledge of the internet, because I think sometimes older people get a bit isolated, and then they feel that, no, I can't do that there, I can't do that. So it's about trying to give them a challenge and encouragement. And when they do find out that they can work a computer, or that it's not as, you know, it's not in their mind, and it's dead on. They have fun doing it.
Especially if you can't get out. too well. At least you still have a communication, you still have a, you know, there's somebody out there you can talk to. I think they're good, but as I say, I'm just starting out with them, you know.
We see ourselves as a multicultural group. You know, we do a lot of cross-community stuff. We've got a varied thing. We're into health, we're into social needs, and we're into community development and sports, health. We just do the sort of variety of everything that we try and fit into.
Linking Generations is the only organisation in Northern Ireland that solely works to bring generations together and to work out between experience from the older people to getting them to perceive younger people in a more positive way, to overcome the fear of crime in older people, to overcome negative perceptions of young people, and to build a solid community.
A lot of emphasis on young people through pensioners in a lot of areas is that they're just out to cause trouble and antisocial behaviour, so we try to, as a community group, and me personally as a youth worker, I try to get that emphasis off the young people, because young people too also feel that the pensioners themselves label them and target them, as where I think this kind of group work, it shows a difference. And the kids realise that pensioners aren't big ogres and gnomes, and the pensioners see that the kids are willing to learn and take new things on board.
And plus also to just realise that not everybody who's hanging about the corner is going to do them harm or are going to engage in some sort of antisocial behaviour. And it's the same with the young people. You know, it's a realisation that people are older, they don't get around, they like some quiet time. And it's not about shouting and bawling outside somebody's front door, and it's about respect for each other.
There's a wealth of experience there, of understanding, and yet there's a wealth of experience in younger people, that they have facilities that we were never brought up with. As an older person myself, you know, that they have things at their touch that is a total strange thing to us, and they can teach us those things. And we can learn that all younger people are not bad by any means.
Northern Ireland is an organisation that works to try and raise awareness of the impacts of climate change in Northern Ireland and try to support and promote action. So we understand from the scientific reports that have been published in recent years that our climate is changing. So no matter how much we do to try and reduce our carbon emissions and reduce our contribution to climate change, we are facing a changing climate. It doesn't mean that we need to, that we should stop working to try and reduce our contribution to climate change, because that's very important. But we really need to try and understand what the impacts are going to be of a changing climate and try to work to become more resilient to that. So what we're trying to do today is to bring people together. We're doing it in partnership with the Royal Society of Ulster Architects. So we're trying to bring the construction industry together to really just try and raise awareness of what's happening, just recognise the fact that we do need to consider this. Our buildings that we have already and the buildings that we're building are going to be here in 10, 20, 30 years time, and we really need to consider the fact that we have a changing climate and to design so that we are going to be resilient to those impacts.
Well, I think the first thing to recognise is that we're already seeing changes in climate. So when we look on a global scale in particular, we can see that the temperature's increased, we can see that rainfall is increasing in some places, and that extremes of heavy rainfall are increasing. And we can link those changes to man-made emissions of greenhouse gases. When we look at how the climate will change in the future, it's very clear that we're already having to start to adapt to those changes in climate, and we will have to make further changes to make sure that we can be resilient to future changes in climate.
For my sins, I developed the BT Tower down in Lagan in Lanyon Place. Whenever we designed that in 1995, the ground floor had to be designed to 3 metres above datum, above river level, in order to mitigate any potential flood issues. I'm now designing a new office block round by the Maysfield Leisure Centre, and we have been told by Rivers Agency to keep the ground floor level at 4.2 metres above datum. So over the space of 20 years, we have now had to take account of a major shift in the potential for flooding in the Belfast area, and that takes account of a 4 feet, 1.2 metre shift in that. So that is quite a major change in what we all have to take account of whenever we are designing buildings, brand new buildings from scratch.
Well, I think in many ways here the industry is ahead of the government. We have some very progressive and informed designers, planners, architects and agents here in the north, and I think it's important that we work as a department and the local councils, who now have the majority of planning powers, work in partnership with these people, with those within the industry, within the sector, and on issues such as design and how we can build structures that will be able to withstand severe and extreme weather events.
Everybody assumed in the past that it was easier to tear down existing buildings and build brand new buildings. The older buildings are actually much more energy efficient than people let on to be. What we don't want to do is tear down perfectly good buildings, such as the building that we're standing in front of today, and build something and all that embedded energy that was used to create this beautiful edifice in front of us would be wasted. So it's much better, much more economical, much more efficient to keep and sustain the existing built environment and use it and dream up new ways of actually making the buildings more viable and vibrant part of the built environment.
If you're making design decisions which are going to make a difference, are going to, for buildings and infrastructure that's going to be around for 50 years, 100 years, if you make those changes now, the costs are quite small, and it means that your building will be resilient for many years to come. If you don't make those changes, you'll have to retrofit things much later, which obviously is a more expensive option in the long term.
What does the future hold for us now?
Well, my department, the DOE of Northern Ireland, continues to work with other government departments. I think that's very important as well. This isn't just about buildings, it's also about supporting infrastructure, chiefly our roads and our coastal defences as well, all of which have taken a bit of a battering over recent years with heavy rain and snowfall. I think it's vitally important that we continue that work.
The future is all about taking account of what is around the corner. The 100-year floods that we've been talking about, I've just been told by a speaker a couple of minutes ago that the 100-year floods are now going to be every 20 years, every 10 years, every 5 years. So that is very worrying. We've had our flood of 2012 when the West Link was flooded. This potentially could be happening much more frequently. So as designers, as architects, engineers, we have to take account of that.
Where can people find out more information on these issues being addressed?
Well, Climate Northern Ireland acts as an information platform, so we have a website at climatenorthernIreland.org.uk.
The research was a review of services for older men aged 50 or over who are living within Belfast. The men's working group were concerned that there wasn't enough information about the type of services that were available for these men or whether they were meeting the need. So we were commissioned to undertake an exercise to review the type of services that were out there and whether they were meeting the need.
Well, our involvement in the seminar today was really to highlight the research findings from Queen's University, the fact that there are gaps in terms of service provision at the moment, that we need to create opportunities for men to come together, that perhaps some of those opportunities don't exist at the moment. We're delighted to be involved with the seminar today through Queen's and through Stormont. but it's about awareness raising.
Well, research both locally and across the world has shown that older people are particularly vulnerable to loneliness and social isolation because of a decrease in their mobility, a reduction in their income, the loss of friends and the loss of family. And research has also shown that social isolation and particularly loneliness can have a detrimental effect on people's mental health and well-being. It can be a trigger or a cause of depression and other mental health problems. So it is very important that people don't slide into a place where their lack of contact with the outside world has negative impacts on their well-being.
Service provisions aimed at social isolation have been criticised for being feminised. What are your views on this?
I think that has not been a deliberate result. I think that's really basically because women have got involved in lots of the services that have been provided, and that obviously shapes the types of activities that they're going to undertake. And this is why it's really, really important that we create the opportunities for men to develop their own particular activities through the likes of men's sheds, men's groups. But we need to create that space. But I don't think it's been a deliberate policy. I think it's just through the course of time these groups and these activities have developed, but they tend to have been it's older women who've got involved in those activities.
A lot of masculinity and gender theory would tell us that men aren't good at asking for help. Perhaps don't want to admit that they're feeling lonely, don't want to admit that they're in a difficult place, and don't want to go looking for help. There's some kind of stigma to that.
What it tells us is there are lots of gaps around provision for older men. There isn't the same capacity there that there would be there for perhaps lots of older women in our community. What we need to do is to say we need to create the space, we need to create the opportunities for older men to come out together, whether that be around history or sport. But we also need to show them how do you actually set up a group, what's involved in that, how do they apply for some funding, and that's where those particular things need to be built up at the moment. We need to create equality across the city of Belfast so that it doesn't matter what part of the city you are living in as an older man, that you can get help no matter where you are to set up a group or to get involved in a local men's shed if there is one. But that capacity isn't there at the moment, and we need to create that capacity. We need funders to get involved in that, and we need community, voluntary and statutory sector to come together to create more opportunities for older men to do that.
I was presenting research from an ongoing project looking into arts accessibility in arts venues in Northern Ireland and Great Britain, and in particular investigating the facilities for people with varying visual and hearing ability. The data that was collected is from various arts venues across Northern Ireland from the 20 local government districts, and some of the findings that I presented today relate to the facilities such as audio description, touch tours, which are primarily targeted at blind and partially sighted patrons, and then for the deaf and hard of hearing, for instance, sign language interpreting and captioning for the deaf and hard of hearing. Well, the research shows that at present the availability of access facilities is quite limited in Northern Ireland in the participating venues, and there are huge rapid developments in technological progress which are offering opportunities to make access more widely available for everyone and at using cost-effective solutions. So I think that finding a way to bridge the gap between the limited availability of access facilities and the pioneering technological solutions is one of the key findings of the project. One of the main barriers to achieving inclusive arts accessibility is attitudinal barriers. There's a kind of dichotomy between disabled and able-bodied people, and a view of accessibility as a supplementary provision, something that is an afterthought rather than as integral to the production and design of an arts product. I think that a change in approach is required to try and improve the accessibility of the arts for everyone by encouraging arts venues and providers of art, so the artists, the producers and so on, to think of accessibility as integral to the production and thinking about it right from the start, from the conception of a project, rather than as a supplementary or additional need.
And now, tomorrow's weather.